Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Louis Graham Virtual Roundtable. This is a roundtable where we will discuss the legacy and the impact of Louis Graham. Louis was a friend of mine. He was also a very talented, brilliant researcher, policy advocate. He had an extraordinary intellectual imagination that influenced so many of us. So the purpose of this roundtable series is to shed light on his many contributions and also to offer blueprints for aspiring scholars, for aspiring researchers, for aspiring policy advocates and practitioners, all in the service of advancing his incredible legacy. And I'm joined with a really incredible group of folks. And if you, my amazing panelists, if you could introduce yourselves.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am Kisha Holden, Dr. Holden, and I am a professor at Morehouse School of Medicine. And I kind of split my time with the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences and the Department of Community Health and Preventive Medicine and the Satchel Leadership Institute, which is an institute, which I'll get into in a little bit, but Louis was a part of the Satchel Leadership Institute. Community voices in particular. And so I'm a psychologist, but I'm a researcher by training. And I am interested in looking at some of the strengths-based approaches or resilience approaches that people use to thrive. And so that's me in a nutshell.
Thank
Ugo?
you.
I remember you, Ugo.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ugo Edu, and I'm an assistant professor in the African American Studies Department at UCLA. But I did do my PhD in medical anthropology at UCSF, UC Berkeley. And my interests are thinking about health more broadly and how we kind of define it and what that means in terms of our trajectory towards health equity. And I think about this in relationship to ideas around Blackness. And I look at this question through reproductive health, reproductive justice, body modification, and body knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So we're just going to jump right on in with our roundtable. And I'm going to start with Kisha. If you wouldn't mind sharing with us, how did you first meet Louis?
I first met Louis. I'm not trying to, I'm kind of hard to, you have to really be impressive for me to even endorse you. And so when I met Louis, it was obvious. I was like, oh, okay. It was at Morehouse School of Medicine. And for the very first time, we were looking for at least one intern. I was over Community Voices, which was a community-oriented organization within the Satchel Leadership Institute, which is within Morehouse School of Medicine. And so I needed an intern, but I knew like I said, I couldn't have someone who I wasn't really looking to do a lot. I needed someone who could just jump right in.
It's funny, as she was talking about it's handled, you kind of know who kind of Louis kind of was a little bit, minus the sex stuff, Olivia Pope. Like, if you ever saw Scandal, like that energy, like that was him all day. Ugo. How did you and Louis, actually, I don't even think I know this story. Like, how did you and Louis meet, actually? What was y'all's class together?
Yeah, so because we both started the same year at the MPH program, and I tend to be drawn to people who are smart, really intelligent, who often are smarter than I am. And I'm trying to remember now, but I feel like he must have said something that I was like, he seems like he's a really profound thinker, and I want to, know him better. And so we just started talking and just started hanging out, just being friends. I think I probably was, because I'm the kind of person who will ask questions of people like, oh, so what do you think of class today? Or what do you think about what we were talking about? And so we would just kind of grow in that way. And one of the things I really appreciated about Louis is that he was a really, really generous thinker. Because there are people who are really smart, really intelligent, but they're not always generous. They're not always patient or caring with their knowledge and how they share it with you or how they express it. And I felt like he was a really graceful person in that sense. He was a really generous intellect. And so I felt like there were just ways he was so patient with me, and allowing me to think alongside him, because I think it was an honor to be able to do that. And just teaching me things that I had no idea about, expanding my thinking, expanding my approach to different kinds of questions as it relates to public health and or just the human condition. I eventually went to medical anthropology, and I feel like I still take so much of what I learned with him and about thinking along with me.
Hey, Kisha, you were talking about how Louis kind of set the standard for other interns you worked with. And I think you were just kind of
Yes,
expounding on
I
that a little
was.
bit.
He had a way of making certain that things were. He was very innovative in the way he thought about and put together concepts, public health and health oriented concepts, and the whole vision of Morehouse School of Medicine is leading the creation and advancement of health equity, whether it be through education or clinical care, community-based programs that we may have worked with. And so I felt comfortable all the time, actually, having Louis go out and represent us. It wasn't a situation where I was worried or concerned. Well, maybe he could handle it, and I felt good about that. But he definitely set the standard of excellence for those any intern that came subsequently. And what I was saying, I'm not sure if I got cut off. But we established a symposium in honor of his name, so that it's understood that just so we can keep his name alive. He definitely laid the foundation of the kind of excellence or level that we would expect from people who were going to be working with our team. And I think also just mentoring him and establishing it was always a professional relationship, but it's also where I got to know him. He got to know me from a perspective of just our humanity. And we certainly respected each other. And so, yeah.
It's interesting you talked about he set the standard for other interns you've worked with. I think for me, he kind of set the standard for researchers that want to partner with my organization. And so, for example, and I think this was part of the influence of community voices,
Mhm.
the importance of
Mhm.
dissemination, like research
Yes.
dissemination. And I know that's something that he always had a
Mhm.
lens for. It's not enough to collect
Right.
data. It's not enough to do this research, but you have to
You have to
disseminate it in
write
an
it up.
innovative way.
Like for me, it was big on publishing. I just had actually a couple books that were just published. But Louis was someone that he was on board. He was like, yes, let's get it out. If you don't have it disseminated appropriately, it's like, how are you going to prove or show others what what was done? How can you possibly replicate it? So it was always a point of wanting to make sure that we published or disseminated or and made it relatable for people too, because I worked with him on, okay, yes, it's great to have academic publications in these journals, but also for community oriented people, regular everyday people, we need to publish information that's easily digestible, that it's not too much jargon. And so, he and I worked on being able to do that in a way that I felt like was was good for others.
And the
Well,
ways
we're
to be, oh, sorry. Just, I think something that he was helpful for me in that regard is also to be held accountable to the community,
Yes.
right? Because sometimes within academia and within our respective fields, we don't hold ourselves accountable in the ways that, might matter in different ways. But he
Mm-hmm.
also was big
Mm-hmm.
on, it's important to get that information out, but also allow the community to speak back to us and say, no, you
Yes.
didn't get this right, or you
Yes.
misinterpreted, or, rework
Mm-hmm.
this. So
And especially to the diversity piece, that it's not a one size fits all for everyone, that we have to tailor our messages or approaches or ways that we want to connect with others such that it is quote unquote user friendly. And so I really like that about him. And I feel like for me, I think I learned that too from him in many ways. Given that Morehouse is community oriented or looking at reducing health disparities, but I still feel like he kind of put the cherry on top of things. It made it okay. That's fine, but this may be another approach that you could possibly make it even stronger. And so I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and let me also be clear that Lewis was certainly very brilliant. He was very intentional about wanting to go to Morehouse
Oh,
School of
he was?
Medicine
Okay,
for his
good.
MP. He was very intentional. So he had gone to Carleton College undergrad, this liberal arts college in Minnesota, and he was, I think, on track to become a doctor. He was gonna go to med school, and that was something that he wanted to do. But at some point in his undergraduate experience, he went to South Africa for a study abroad, and he started learning about public health. And he realized that his interest in health wasn't merely just on the patient level or individual level, but he was interested in health on a community level. And not only was he interested in health on a community level or population level, but that he was interested in Black health and the health of Black folks in Black communities. And so him being very intentional and deliberate and strategic about everything that he did, he felt that Morehouse School of Medicine, the MPH program, was the best
Wow,
place for him, the best
good.
platform to do the work that he
That's
wanted to.
good to know. I didn't know that. I mean, maybe he shared some of that with me, but it's just it was a good fit. It seemed like it was not just let me get in and get out. For example, I did my postdoc at Johns Hopkins, and I immediately realized I was like, it's a great school, but it's not a place I'm going to build my career. And so I was like, let me just get my credentials and get in, get out, kind of thing. So, but Lewis definitely wanted, from my perspective, he wanted to make an impact on communities, diverse communities. And so I love that about him.
I feel like we've covered a lot of ground about things that I was hoping that we would touch on pretty well, but I guess we could do maybe a deeper dive around. Is there like a particular memory or a very specific memory of Lewis that you continue, like sort of, I think sometimes relationships, there's this one moment that you'll just forever be sealed in your memory about this person. Like it's kind of, it either defines your relationship or it defines how you see someone. But do you have a memory like that of
Well,
Lewis?
Ugo, I know y'all were tight, but like I said, this shirt I have on, it's handled. It was like, I mean, it's not a memory of Lewis per se, but I felt like he always made sure it was done. And he didn't stress me out about what do I do? How do I execute? It was it's handled. And I really appreciated that about him.
I remember getting ready for classes and him calling me or texting me like, "Do you want me to pick you up?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." Like, "Do you want me to bring you an extra burrito?" Because my dad used to make these huge meals, and so I'd make them to like these huge burritos, and so I'd make that for him. And just when I think about some of that, like just the kind of care he that was really important, and it's such a big part of our relationship, that caring for each other. I remember us staying late at night at Morehouse School of Medicine working on whether it's Community Voices work or the newsletter we started or just trying to think through something together. And he would always make sure to take me home You know, we try to give him some gas money. You know, we were broke students, trying to make it. I remember too when he had his idea for his thesis, and I think this is one of the things that stands out for me, and I often talk about with my students, but I have to do it carefully because not everyone is Louis's caliber of, you know, scholar and student. Even I wasn't, you know, but you know, he suggested his project, and they were like, "This is 3 different projects, right? I think you should just pick one and do it." And I learned a lot from Louis in terms of also choosing your battles and how you don't always have to communicate whether you've chosen the battle or not, or what you're going to do. You just, okay, yes. And so he did that, and he went on and did his thesis as he proposed, and it was, I mean, it was amazing. And I remember when he was presenting, there was someone from the CDC there who was like, "Can we get a model? Like, do you have a model or something that we could use?" And I was just so proud of him because he understood that there's no way that I can talk about this without thinking about these 3 things together, right? We're thinking about sexuality, mental health. I'm probably going to forget the other one. But, you know, it's very much intersectional work that he was doing, and he refused to. And I think because he knew he could do it. Like, there's just no other way he was going to do this project without thinking these things together. And he didn't let, you know, anyone or anything stop him from doing that. He did it so amazingly. Like I said, the CDC person was looking for his project. And so, and I'll just share this last one. I don't know if I should, but we both, because I always told him, I want to be like you, Louis, I want to be like you. And we both got arrested at some point. and and I remember distinctly that the day I was like, "Where is Louis?" Like, it's unlike Louis to just not come to class. I can't get a hold of him. Like, what happened? And he was gone for a couple of days. And I remember, you know, we were really worried, and this, you know, so when we finally found ourselves, I was like, "What happened? You know, what happened to you? Where were you?" And he told me what happened, and I chuckled because I was like, maybe a month later. I don't remember the time frame now, but I was like, I guess I really wanted to be just like you because I went and got arrested too. Very similar in terms of like what our outcome was. And just again, like he, even with all that, because he actually did end up having to spend the night in the jail. He was graceful about it. Like he was still joyful. He was still happy. You wouldn't know if you didn't know Louis that he had passed through what he had passed through in that regard. And he was just, I remember he was like, "I have to pay this lawyer $500 every 2 weeks." I was like, "Where are you gonna get $500 from? Like, where's that money gonna come from?" And he just, I don't know, he just would do it. He would go to class, go to work. Like he just did it, and he was just doing it. And I mean, maybe it's a good thing on the one hand, and maybe it's not, because students shouldn't have to go through that. But it's something I often think about as well, just in terms of even in the face of it, just still finding joy, finding laughter, finding, you know, things to be happy about despite a tough situation.
I was just thinking when you said that story, it was just, he was resilient and he made it happen, whatever it had to be. And so that was my experience. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things I think about too with Louis is, I mean, I learned so much just sort of being a kind of research partner, a sort of mini research partner. So when he was working on his thesis, I was also helping him collect data. But I remember him having these, you know, basically arguing that Black queer men were disproportionately impacted by depression and anxiety, but the tools that were developed to measure those things are not culturally tailored, so they don't pick it up. And I didn't even know that anxiety was something. I didn't even know there was a name to what I was here. And so he just had these really bold and innovative and disruptive ideas. Even to this day, like I know he, again, with the thing about like mental health tools and being able to measure things and how it has to be culturally responsive. I still think about that. I think about also just his rigor of caring about marginalized communities in ways that marginalized communities also deserve rigor and deserve hard work. And like, I'll never forget that about him.
You're right.
Yeah. And just, he never just took. Oh, sorry, Kisha.
No, go. I was just saying you're right.
No, I was just gonna say. Oh, yeah, exactly. And also, he just didn't take something just as it was. He was good at taking it and saying, "Well, let me dig a little deeper. Let me peel this back
Yes.
a bit. Let me ask some questions here." And like I said, I feel like I just learned so much with him about not just kind of taking a stat or not just taking. There was something in particular. I remember we talked about where they were talking about this increase of Black youth in the South hanging themselves or committing suicide, and he was like, let's really think about this. Let's peel
Let's
this
break
back a
it
bit and
down.
let's try to understand what's really happening. Can we just write it off as it's just Black youth in the South are just having more depression and anxiety and they're killing themselves, or what's actually really happening? What are we not talking about? And so yeah, he was a gem in terms of that kind of work.
Yes. And I was thinking, particularly as a psychologist, even though that wasn't his direct field, I felt like he recognized the significance of including mental and behavioral health as a part of everything, really. Understanding the complexities of diseases or advocacy issues, or he realized that needed to be a part of the picture. And so I appreciated that as someone in the field of psychology.
One of the things that we talked about is that he was also interested in environmental
Oh.
science. And so I think in his life, he sometimes wondered, would it be better for him to have pursued that path? Because he was someone that dealt with depression. And I do wonder, looking back, that in him also researching depression, and maybe that this is one of the cautionary tales that his life kind of represents. It's like, what does it mean to be someone that deals with depression, that deals with mental health struggles, and also being very close to that in the collection of data? And so sometimes we just, kind of fantasize about like what would be but I think he was just so committed. I mean, to this day, I don't know if I've seen anyone as committed to the mental health, particularly Black queer men, if not Black men, as Louis was at his phase. And other memory I just also want to share. One of my favorite Louis memories is I remember one time we were on the phone, and I think this is maybe his second year at Morehouse School of Medicine. And I guess the students had to get their books at the Morehouse College bookstore or something. He was at the Morehouse College bookstore. And Louis loved Toomey, the brand Toomey. So he had a little Toomey purse he would carry. Before anybody, I mean, it was way before people were kind of doing that. And so he'd have his little Toomey messenger, his little Toomey messenger bag. And he was at Morehouse. He was at the bookstore in line to get his books, and we're talking on the phone and gossiping, whatever we're doing. And somebody in line might have snickered at him or something, or made some comment. And Louis turned around and gave it to them and like lectured them about how they were being immature and and just like what gave it to them, and so he was someone, even though he was he's from Los Angeles, right? He was very chill, he was very laid back, he liked the flip-flops, he liked to wear shorts, he was very that, but he was defiant, and he was not like he didn't suffer fools, and he also didn't let people try. And I was like, in that moment, I was like, yep, that's my Louis.
That's Louis.
And also, it'd be like, I remember one time, this is a little bit later, he was in a barbershop. He told me the story, he was in a barbershop. And I mean, especially like, I think barbershops just recently went through an anti-homophobia. I don't know, they don't do it as much as they used to, but like, I don't know, like maybe around 2000, maybe Obama got the people. I don't know what happened. But I remember like in the early odds. And so, if you're in a barbershop, you might hear some homophobia, right? And you make your choices. And Louis might have been in a barbershop. This one, he was in Greensboro. And somebody said something real homophobic, kind of similar to Ugo. I think our experience is parallel. And Louis, mid haircut, hopped out the chair and ripped the apron off and cussed out and went on his way. And so I was like, And so a few weeks later, when I was at my barbershop in Atlanta, and somebody said something homophobic, that I had to get up. Because I was like, oh no, and sometimes you have friends like that. You think about, no, it's not. And I never really was someone that's gonna sit up and but I mean, to do the super dramatic thing, I was like, no, that's who we are. And I think when you have friends like that, so I just want to, yeah, Louis was brilliant. He was amazing, but he was
Yeah.
tough. Like he was one of the toughest
Yeah.
people, one of the toughest people I've ever known.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Are there any closing thoughts that you would like to share, or any final recollections, or even what can students this roundtable is certainly a broad audience, but we definitely see it being very relevant to the students and community of Morehouse School of Medicine, in particular, Ugo, you being an alum, and Kisha being a student. Yeah, I'm sorry, professor.
That's
Professor.
okay.
Professor.
That's okay.
So young.
Actually, I was a
Yeah.
student. I got a Master of Science in Clinical Research so
yeah,
just for that.
I love it. But what do you think that students at Morehouse School of Medicine can learn from Lewis's legacy? What do you
I'd
want them
like
to
to
know?
start this one. I feel like, similar to what I was saying earlier about why we even established that symposium in his name, is the reason was because he always did things with the idea that it's going to turn out great, excellent. And I would say students need to realize that there's a quick path that you can go, but there's also a path that you can go that's going to produce the kind of results that are excellent. And Louis really, as I started out, he laid the foundation of what it should be. And I like that he didn't cut corners. And so I would say that to the students too. Don't always try to look for the easiest path, but take the time and have the patience to really truly adopt and understand who your target audience may be, and not just look at them as, okay, let me collect this data and be out, but really embrace what it means to support, help, uplift that particular community that you may be working with, because definitely Louis did a lot of that in a very poignant and gingerly fashion. He was able to connect with people and make people feel comfortable enough to even share and open up enough about certain topics. And so I would say to students, please take the time that you need to. It's not easy to just go in and get out and try to just collect data, but really take the time necessary to recognize that there is a way that you can build a relationship with the target community or people that you're working with in a way that's gonna be long lasting. And that's certainly what Louis did. He well, for me, he created a lasting impression that is very, very positive. So
Thank you, Ugo.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, I echo what Kisha said. I think also, when you read his work, don't just read it and like grab the diagram or the model or the theory or the framework, right? But to really engage his work, because I think that there's so much more there that we can learn than like around process, and like Kisha was pointing to in terms of relationship building and care. Especially, I think, because a lot of people are thinking about care more in the kind of activist work that we're doing, and I really think that Louis, there's a way in which care showed up constantly. And so I think even the care of telling someone off, like, which we're not going to do, is be homophobic in this space. And so that care and the collaborative work, and I think also paying attention to those stories that are not told, that are not making it to the mainstream. Those are some things that I feel like would be essential for students. And I think, again, just echoing Kisha in terms of excellence, like Louis he was a boss. He was a beast. He was just, like I said, I was like, I want to be like you. And so excellence. And I know excellence gets troubled a bit because of a lot of different things, but I think it's something worth grasping onto.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your incredible stories and just holding the space with us. These memories, I think, are so powerful. And I think that Louis's legacy will continue to burn brightly. And I think it's still something that we can continue to learn from, build on, and strengthen.